The inside of the Belgrade cauldron has not yet cooled down, and the Russian military seems to have planned the next move, directing the spearhead. While Kyiv is struggling to cope with immense pressure on the Donetsk front, where many Ukrainian units have suffered severe losses and the risk of encirclement is becoming increasingly clear. Russia's simultaneous expansion of the campaign to the south not only reveals its ambition to advance deeper but also raises the question of whether the Russia is approaching a decisive turning point or even its conclusion. This shift in strategic focus is a bold move, assessed by analysts as a dangerous blow threatening to collapse the entire defensive system of Ukraine in the south and southeast. Has the excessive focus on Belgrade trapped Ukraine in a tunnel vision effect, overlooking the greater risk emerging in the south? Analysts believe that the stark contrast in the speed and method of attack between the Belgrade and Zaporizhia fronts illustrates a sophisticated tactical picture by Moscow. A dual operation strategy aimed at dispersing and neutralizing the opponent's Belgrade, despite Russian officials claiming to have encircled thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, remains a highly symbolic and political war of attrition. It is a necessary battle for Moscow to declare control over most of the Donbass region. The fighting here is intense, but Ukrainian military expert Vladislav Seleznyov notes that Russia's advance in Belgrade is much slower than in the eastern Zaporizhia direction, an area assessed to have been neglected by Kyiv. This is a crucial contrast because Belgrade may serve as a decoy to draw attention and resources, while Zaporizhia is the main mobile strike, fully exploiting gaps in awareness and defensive lines. It can be said that the surprise tactic in Zaporizhia stems not only from Ukraine's excessive focus on Donetsk, but is also strongly supported by a seemingly coincidental yet highly pragmatic factor employed by the Russian military: favorable weather. According to the southern Ukrainian defense forces, Russia has taken advantage of the dense fog covering the area to conceal its advance and sabotage route activities. Ukrainian soldiers revealed that while Kyiv was still concentrating mental and material resources on Belgrade, the Russian military moved very quickly along the right flank towards Zaporizhia, almost bypassing the entire southern defensive line through the Dnipropetrovsk region. This strike is seen as a demonstration of flexible adaptability, turning harsh weather conditions into a tactical advantage, targeting Ukraine's weaknesses in reconnaissance and early warning capabilities. Currently, military circles are particularly concerned about a new gray zone forming near the village of Malatoska in Zaporizhia province, an area that was the focus of Ukraine's summer 2023 counteroffensive. Russia's attempt to launch a large-scale armored breakthrough here near Tangaskova not only seeks to infiltrate the defensive line, but also aims to deliver a steel strike to penetrate the defense system, potentially repeating the rapid collapse model in other areas. More alarmingly, sources from Russia claim that Ukraine's defensive system at the stronghold in Stanoka, near Gulipol, has completely collapsed, and soldiers of Ukraine's 110th Independent Mechanized Brigade are retreating en masse under pressure. If this information is verified, the withdrawal from Stanoka would be a serious tactical retreat, not only due to the defensive importance of this stronghold but also because it reflects a severe decline in combat morale and organization of some units. The balance of forces is gradually tilting toward Moscow, especially as expert Seleznyov warns that this offensive not only pressures the left flank of the Zaporizhia defense forces, but also threatens critical logistical lines sustaining Ukraine's defense system in Pokrovsk and Volgograd. In other words, Russia not only wants to expand territory, it is seeking to cut logistical arteries, paving the way for a larger collapse in the southeast. This coordinated strategy forces Ukraine to face a pressure dilemma: accept the risk of encirclement in Pokrovsk, to hold a political fortress or retreat to salvage the logistical line in Zaporizhia. This situation becomes even more dangerous when looking at the Kupiansk front, a strategic transportation city. Russian officials recently also announced they are advancing step by step but steadily to gain control of Kupiansk, an important. If Kupiansk falls, it will open a direct route for Russia to advance deeper into the Kharkiv region, threatening to create another gap in the north. Three fronts: Pokrovsk, the strategic breakthrough in Zaporizhia, and Kupiansk, the logistical hubs, are creating combined pressure, forcing Kyiv to disperse its already depleted resources.
Rapid and systematic developments, the question of the conflict. S conditions but a strategic reshaping based on Ukraine.
The military situation on the ground is directly affecting negotiation dynamics, or more precisely, reducing Moscow's motivation to negotiate, as they perceive the advantage as gradually. In a sharp perspective, former NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen issued a warning not only aimed at Moscow, but also an implicit accusation against the sluggishness and indecisiveness of European countries. He argued that if Europe does not quickly shift from incremental support measures to decisive action, Ukraine risks being drawn into a protracted war and gradually losing territory. According to Rasmussen, the reason Moscow lacks motivation to sit at the negotiation table is that they still believe victory is within reach.
Advances in Zaporizhia and Pokrovsk are evidence reinforcing Moscow's belief, showing that his assessment carries weight and is based on battlefield realities. Even more notable is Rasmussen's call for decisive steps, including deploying missile defense systems, drones, and even military forces in NATO countries bordering Ukraine.
Particularly, his emphasis on the importance of deploying European forces on Ukrainian territory before any ceasefire agreement.
Red line.
The goal of this strategy is not only to create a no-fly zone,
but also to send a strong political message that NATO's presence will force Russia to consider any attack as an action against the entire alliance.
However, observers note that this proposal, though resolute, carries a high risk of escalating conflict and is unlikely to be approved. It reflects deep frustration and concern among Western leadership about the current pace of support, especially in a context where the war is gradually turning into a race of defense industrial production and human. This official's urging of Germany to provide long-range Taurus missiles and the potential for paving the way for the US to transfer Tomahawk missiles to Kiev, as well as targeting critical Russian logistical lines, thereby changing the battlefield situation.
Endgame. Endgame. Endgame.
Then the strategic advances in Zaporizhia and the combined pressure in the Kupiansk area take on a very significant meaning.
S attack in Zaporizhia, an area reportedly left undefended by Ukraine, shows a serious imbalance in resource allocation and a lack of tactical intelligence on Ukraine.
The Russian military's exploitation of weather conditions to penetrate deep into the defense system demonstrates flexibility and serving as evidence that rigidity in defense or excessive focus on one hotspot can lead to catastrophic consequences on another. If Ukraine does not urgently stabilize the situation, especially in eastern Zaporizhia, where expert Celestia warns of threats to logistical lines, the risk of collapse lies not just in an isolated stronghold, but in the entire major effect. Combined with continuous pressure in Kupiansk, Ukrainian forces are facing an extremely difficult strategic
how to simultaneously hold onto large besieged fortresses and prevent swift breakthroughs threatening rear logistical lines amid depleting resources.
Rasmussen concludes that without real strategic changes, the risk of this war turning into a prolonged process of gradual territorial loss becomes increasingly. This warning is not just an urging but also a forecast.
It implies that this conflict may not end with a rapid collapse, but with a drawn-out process of gradual erosion.
This erosion is not only military but also a decline in political trust and funding capability,
especially as Ukraine faces delays in the approval of aid packages from the US, compounding the economic and military challenges.
It can be said that what is happening in Kupiansk, Zaporizhia, and other areas is not a sign of a sudden end. Instead, this is the beginning of a decisive phase in a conflict, where Russia is leveraging resource advantages in Ukraine's lack of focus to shift from attrition tactics to strategic breakthrough tactics. The endgame, if it occurs, will be the result of a combination of unrelenting military pressure from Moscow and strategic response capability, along with a level of decisive military and political intervention from Western parts. Analysts believe that if Europe and NATO do not accept political risks to undertake stronger actions, an unfavorable ceasefire agreement after losing additional critical territories, in a context where the military power balance has tilted decisively toward Moscow, is entirely possible in the near future.
Like the journey? Subscribe and join the next expedition.